Greetings all, this is Nick from Those Hairy Gamers, and we are back for some more Magic the Gathering Commander 2017 spoilers. In this batch, we've had a look at a few of the dragons to come in the dragon deck. Let's dive right into them. Okay, first up we have Wazataro Nekoru Queen. Cost 2 generic, 1 black, 1 red, and 1 green. It's a legendary cat dragon. Flying Trample. When Wazataro deals combat damage to a player, that player sacrifices a creature. If that player can't, you get a 3/3 black, red, and green cat dragon creature token with flying. This is a lot of fun. The first time I saw this, I thought, oh yes, another cat that can go big and create tokens. But the colours are wrong. There's just no way to get that into a nice cat deck. It has no white. There's basically no black cats at all, and if it doesn't have white, it's just not going to work, unfortunately. So this is a dragon-only thing that has a bit of cat flavour for some reason. I guess the token spawning thing is a bit cat-like, which is cool. It's nice to get that in a different tribe, and I like it. I like this card a lot. Flying Trample, it has to deal damage to the player. It's going to do that with relative ease. At a 5 cost, it's coming out sort of mid-game. However, in this deck, it might ramp a bit faster, and that might not be so difficult. So, yeah, cool card. I like it. And I particularly love the art they put on the token. This is quite nice. Next up, we have Kagachi Vengeful Kami. Cost 1 generic and then 1 of each of the colours from the colour wheel. Legendary creature Dragon Spirit. Flying Trample again. When Kagachi Vengeful Kami deals combat damage to a player, if that player attacked you during his or her last turn, exile target non-land permanent that player controls. So a very powerful ability, but unfortunately not that easy to activate. It doesn't have haste, so you can't pop it down straight away and then swing. You have to sort of telegraph the idea that you can do this ability to your opponent, so they always have that consideration to go off of. But it's interesting. Exiling something for free is amazing. Yeah, the player's got to swing at you, but I guess this is an interesting sort of board lock kind of card. It forces your opponent not to swing in certain situations, which I quite like. It's got the mind games going, which could work quite well. Next, we have the Dragon. Cost 4 generic, and then again, 1 of each of the colours from the colour wheel. Legendary creature, Dragon Avatar. Now, this would be a great commander. Eminence. As long as the Dragon is in the command zone or on the battlefield, other dragon spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Flying. Whenever 1 or more dragons you control attack, draw that many cards. Then you can put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. So this feels a lot like the cat commander Arabo, except I think in this case the Eminence power is a lot weaker, but the second paragraph, which means you have to have this creature in the battlefield to use this, is amazing. You're just drawing a whole heap of cards and just putting things straight in the battlefield, especially in a deck where things cost so much and the mana colors on those cards are so complicated. Just giving yourself the ability just to throw something straight down is amazing. I mean, this happens after you cast the Dragon, so I guess from that point of view, you should have already 1 of each color unless you did something janky to get them into play first. But still, it means you can cast 2 potentially massive things in one turn. You can cast the dragon that costs all your mana, and then bam, you cost another dragon that would have cost all your mana. So this is quite strong as well. Next, we have Taigam Ojutai Master. There are a lot of tongue twisters in this set. Cost 2 generic, 1 white, 1 blue. So a lot simpler in terms of the mana requirements in this card. A legendary human monk. Instant sorcery and dragon spells you control can't be countered by spells or ability. Ooh, some good defense against blue there. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery from your hand, if this creature attacked this turn, that spell gains rebound. In other words, exile that spell as it resolves. At the beginning of your next upkeep, you may cast it from exile without paying its mana cost, so you get to bounce it back into play again. Now, we don't really know too much about the instants and sorceries in this deck. We have seen a few sorcery spells spoiled already, but we don't know if it's going to go into the dragon deck. In any case, this is a 5-color deck, so the potential with this is fantastic. You can put things like Path and Lightning Bolt into this deck quite easily, and being able to bounce those back is very, very powerful. At the very least, he's preventing all of these sorceries and instants from not being countered, and then giving them bounce back, and then your dragons can't be countered either. That's really powerful. I mean, you have these really high cost dragons, you don't want them to get countered. That could ruin your entire game. So this guy has some excellent protection against that. I really like that. Next up, we have Ramos, Dragon Engine. Costs 6 generic. It's a legendary artifact creature dragon. Flying. When you cast a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Ramos Dragon Engine for each of that spell's color. Remove 5 +1/+1 counters from Ramos, and then you add 2 of each of the Colour Pie colours into your mana pool. Activate this only once each turn. This is really good. This is a lot of mana acceleration. So you only need to cast him for 6 generic, which means you may not have all of the colours ready to go. If you can use his activated ability, it means you can basically cast any dragon out of your hand. Indeed, it means you could cast a big dragon which costs 5 different colours of mana, then use his ability and cast another big one. There's a few little tricks here to try and cast 2 massive dragons in one turn, which is potentially terrifying. And I have to say, I just love the flavour of this giant automaton dragon which basically summons other dragons. That's just so friggin' cool. Next up, we have a new land, Path of a Century. Path of a Century enters the battlefield tapped, and you tap it to add any mana of your commander into the pool. When that mana is spent, if you use it to cast a creature with one of the same types as your commander, scry 1. So it's strong in tribal. I mean, obviously that's what these decks are all about. Nothing more to say about this. Scrying 1, early, mid, or late game can be really powerful in the right situation. So, yep, thumbs up to this card. Next up, we have an interesting one because it's not really clear as to which deck this goes into. I think I'm not that au fait with Magic lore that the creatures on this card are merfolk. This is a 5-cost blue enchantment, as in 3 generic mana and 2 blue mana. As Kindred Discovery enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever a creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. It doesn't feel that powerful, but at the same time, it's in Commander, so every card's unique. It can pull out those play pieces you need late game, which can be potentially fantastic. Sort of on the fence with 5 mana. I'm not sure if that's very aggressively costed, but a cool concept nonetheless. Next up, we have Territorial Hellkite. Cost 2 generic and 2 red. A creature dragon. It has flying and haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose an opponent at random that Territorial Hellkite didn't attack during your last combat. Territorial Hellkite attacks that player this combat if able. If you can't choose an opponent this way, tap him. So he's very aggressively costed. A 4-cost 6/5 with flying and haste is potentially quite devastating. You have to swing him out as soon as you play him. Bit volatile, could be removed quite easily, but it is red to the core. It's nice in this deck that features all the colours on the spectrum. It can really surprise your opponent to really dive into like a red strategy all of a sudden midway through the game and really surprise them. So yeah, I love it. It's a cool concept. Next up we have a white dragon, Scale Lord Reckoner. Costs 3 generic and 2 white. Flying. Whenever a dragon you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, destroy target non-land permanent that player controls. Yep, fantastic. Cost 5, a 4/4 flyer. That's pretty strong as it goes. Becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls. So, yeah, I mean, potentially might not get much use out of it, but it's just a huge nope to your opponent. It's a huge disincentive to start getting targeted by your opponent. I mean, when we're looking at this dragon deck, being able to protect these potentially huge dragons from getting removed, or at least giving your opponent a huge disadvantage if they try to remove them, is pretty big, and I think this is going to interplay with the other cards in this deck quite nicely. Next up, we have something that we once again don't know which deck it's from. Fractured Identity. Costs 3 generic, 1 white and 1 blue. It's a sorcery. Exile target non-land permanent. Now this is cool because it's an exile card that has no drawbacks. Just exile something. Great, awesome. It costs 5. I mean, that's not cheap, but the ability to exile something with no drawback is fantastic. And then the next part of the text is, each player other than that controller creates a token copy of that card that you exiled. So there's no drawbacks on it and potentially a huge upside as well. So a 5-cost removal needs to be in blue-white, so it's not going to be in the cat deck, we know that much. Probably not going to be in the vampire deck. Possibly in the other deck that we don't know about, which might be wizards or clerics or humans or something like that. That could be potentially blue-white. But there's a good chance that this is going to appear in the dragon deck at least. Next up, we have an all-black dragon, Boneyard Scourge. Costs 2 generic and 2 black. It's a zombie dragon with flying. Whenever a dragon you control dies while Boneyard Scourge is in your graveyard, you may pay 1 generic and 1 black. If you do, return Boneyard Scourge from your graveyard to the battlefield. Again, black to the core. It's nice to have something that's so hard on one colour in a deck that's meant to be about playing all the different colours and having a nice soft version of all of them. So this guy could become really annoying. He's 4 cost for a 4/3, so he's not aggressively costed, but the idea that you can then cast him for 2 and get a 4/3 with flying, and the ability to dance around removal in the game of Commander is fantastic as well. It's a card that you're going to get lots of mileage out of. He's not going to get removed and then is useless for the rest of the game. He's going to come back and back and back and really annoy your opponent. This is a lot of fun. Next up, we have another sorcery which again is ambiguous as to which deck it's going to go to. This is Fortunate Few. Costs 3 generic and 2 white. Choose a non-land permanent you don't control, then each other player chooses a non-land permanent he or she doesn't control that hasn't been chosen this way. Destroy all other non-land permanents. I love the flavour of this. I love the art and the flavour text down the bottom. Is it over? And you're just left with these 3 little puny creatures. It's such a cool idea for a card. Very political, very good for Commander. I love it. Next up, we actually got revealed another cat today as well. This is Qasali Slingers. Cost 4 generic and 1 green. A cat warrior with reach. Whenever Qasali Slingers or another cat enters the battlefield under your control, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. Wow, that's pretty big. That almost feels too good. I mean, I guess the only drawback with this, it's a 5 cost for a 3/5, so it feels a bit underpowered for its cost. It's a great defender, it has reach, a nice big toughness stat, but wow, that's fantastic. And it's nice that you get mileage out of him straight away. You play him straight away and you can already remove an artifact or enchantment. It feels really, really good against any enchantment or artifact-based Commander decks, and incredibly good against some that only use 1 or 2, but they're sort of relied on. I mean, this just wrecks the Soul Ring. This just wrecks enchantment combos like Phyrexian and Solemnity. So that's really, really powerful. This is going to wreck a lot of people's day. Okay, last thing that was revealed within the last 24 hours. This is Mirror of the Forebears. Costs 2 generic. It's an artifact. As Mirror of the Forebears enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. And it has an activated ability for 1. Until the end of turn, Mirror of the Forebears becomes a copy of the target creature you control of the chosen type, except it's an artifact in addition to other types. So basically, this is a cheaper, less powerful version of Mirage Mirror. You can copy only one of your own creatures, as long as it's of the chosen type. Obviously in a tribal deck that doesn't matter because all of your creatures will be of the same type, unless you've got like some weird support creatures, but all in all it's going to pretty much copy any of your own creatures. I really hope this goes in the cat deck because I'd love to be able to create copies of things like Pride Sovereign. Unfortunately, unlike Mirage Mirror, it can't copy enchantments or artifacts, so you can't double up on nice static effects like a Dawn Procession or something like that and just create a mountain of tokens. But nonetheless, it's a good, cheap, affordable version of Mirage Mirror, and indeed you can play this with Mirage Mirror. I think the ability to play both of those cards and essentially triple up on an effect on a creature to get 3 times the value out of that static effect could be quite powerful, and I quite like the look of this. And that is the batch of cards that were revealed over the last 24 hours. I will be back again tomorrow to look at some more cards, but in the meantime, I'll catch you in the next video. See you later, guys.